There's something mesmerizing about a truly great TED Talk. We've all had that moment. Late at night, the glow of the laptop screen, telling ourselves, just one more, and then staying up to watch another and another. It isn't just the clever slides or the confident delivery that keeps us hooked. It's that in roughly 18 minutes, someone manages to spark wonder, shift a perspective, or plant an idea that keeps echoing in the mind long after the applause fades. That's what Talk Like TED by Carmine Gallo seeks to unpack. Not just the mechanics of public speaking, but the deeper art of why some talks don't just share information but actually touch us, move us, and stay with us. When I first opened this book, I expected a tidy list of presentation tips. Where to stand, how to pace your words, what fonts to use on slides. And yes, Gallo offers practical advice, but the heart of the book beats to a deeper rhythm. It's about connection, authenticity, and the surprising truth that the best talks aren't really about the speaker at all. They're about the audience and what happens in that invisible space between words and ears, between facts and feelings. Gallo, a communications coach and journalist, doesn't write as some distant theorist dissecting speeches from a pedestal. Instead, he invites us behind the scenes of hundreds of TED Talks, the household names like Sir Ken Robinson, Brene Brown, and Steve Jobs, whose Stanford commencement speech is TED famous, even if not literally on TED stage, and also lesser-known speakers whose passion and storytelling make them unforgettable. What emerges isn't a formula in the rigid sense, but a pattern. Great talks blend emotion, novelty, and memorable stories. They educate, but they also inspire and entertain. And they do this not because the speakers are born with some mystical charisma, but because they've learned how to share ideas in a way that makes listeners feel, not just think. One of the first lessons that resonated deeply is the power of passion. Gallo insists and illustrates beautifully that great speakers don't just talk about what they know. They talk about what they love. Passion isn't decoration. It's the engine. Watching someone speak passionately isn't just enjoyable. It's contagious. Think of the late Hans Rosling, a Swedish statistician who turned global health data into something joyful, playful, and moving. The numbers mattered, yes, but it was Rosling's delight in revealing surprising truths that made audiences lean forward, wide-eyed. Reading this, I found myself reflecting not just on speaking, but on communication in everyday life. How often do we hide the spark of what truly excites us, worried it might seem unprofessional or too personal? Yet the very vulnerability of showing what matters to us is often what makes others care too. Gallo reminds us that emotion is not the enemy of reason. It's the bridge that carries reason across. Equally compelling is Gallo's exploration of storytelling. Data and facts matter, of course, but the human mind is wired for narrative. Long before PowerPoint, our ancestors sat around fires telling stories. Stories give context, rhythm, and emotional resonance to information. A list of statistics about poverty might fade from memory, but a single story of a child's struggle and triumph can linger in the heart for years. Gallo shares examples from TED Talks where speakers use personal stories to powerful effect. Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor describing her own stroke from inside the experience. Brian Stevenson of the Equal Justice Initiative sharing childhood moments that shaped his lifelong fight for justice. These aren't stories for decoration. They're the message itself, humanizing complex topics and reminding us why they matter. As I read, I realized how often in daily life, in meetings, emails, even casual conversations, we could make ideas resonate more simply by framing them in the language of human experience. But Talk Like TED isn't just about emotion. It's also about novelty, the delight our brains take in discovering something new or unexpected. Gallo explains how great talks often include an element of surprise, a fresh insight or a way of seeing the familiar differently. Think of Sir Ken Robinson's legendary talk, where he argues with humor and warmth that schools kill creativity. The idea itself isn't new to everyone, but the way he tells it, blending wit, irony, and gently provocative storytelling, makes it feel newly alive. This section prompted me to reflect on the power of perspective. We don't always need groundbreaking research to be interesting. Sometimes it's enough to look at something common from an uncommon angle and share why it matters to us. In conversation, in writing, or on stage, novelty keeps people listening. Not because they've never heard the topic, but because they've never heard this version told in this voice shaped by this experience. And then there's the craft itself. How to structure a talk, how to use visuals, how to rehearse until it feels natural. Gallo dives into these areas too, but always with a reminder that technique serves message, not the other way around. One tip that stuck with me was the rule of three, that people naturally remember things grouped in threes: past, present, future, problem, solution, benefit. It's not magic, but it's rooted in the rhythm of language itself. When you listen to Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone in 2007, you hear this pattern: an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device. The repetition, the build-up, and the surprise payoff make it unforgettable. Gallo also explores what not to do, like overloading slides with text or trying to impress with jargon. The advice feels both practical and human. Audiences don't want to decode your brilliance. They want to understand and connect. Clarity isn't dumbing down. It's a form of respect. And simplicity isn't about leaving out substance. It's about distilling it to what truly matters. Yet perhaps the most striking insight for me came in Gallo's discussion of authenticity. Some speakers are polished, others more conversational. Some are funny, others quiet and reflective. What unites the best talks isn't style, but sincerity. Audiences sense when a speaker believes what they're saying, when the words come from lived experience rather than memorized slogans. And this authenticity can't be faked, not sustainably. Gallo quotes research suggesting that people form impressions of a speaker's trustworthiness within seconds, often guided by nonverbal cues we barely notice ourselves. That's why passion, vulnerability, and honesty matter so much more than perfect eloquence. This realization felt both daunting and freeing. It means you can't script your way into being compelling if your heart isn't in it, but it also means you don't have to become someone else to communicate powerfully. You just have to speak, as Gallo writes, from the inside out, knowing deeply why your message matters, and letting that conviction shape how you share it. Reading talk like TED, I kept thinking how its lessons apply far beyond big stages. We might never give a TED Talk to a global audience, but all of us give talks every day, when we pitch an idea to colleagues, explain a choice to family, or share something we care about with friends. The challenge and the invitation is the same: to speak not just to inform, but to connect. To remember that what moves people isn't only what's in our heads, but what's in our hearts. By the end of the book, Gallo has offered not a rigid formula but a kind of lens, a way to look at communication as a craft of empathy and service. The question becomes not, how can I look impressive? But, how can I help others see what I see, feel what I feel, and understand why it matters? And ironically, that shift often makes us more compelling because it moves the spotlight from self to message, from performance to purpose. Reflecting now, talk like TED doesn't promise that everyone can be a viral sensation or give the perfect talk on the first try. What it does promise and deliver is the belief that powerful communication is learnable, grounded in principles we can practice. Passion, storytelling, novelty, clarity, and authenticity. It doesn't demand perfection. It encourages courage. The courage to be clear, the courage to be yourself, and the courage to trust that what you care about might matter to others too. And perhaps that's the book's most quietly radical message, that what makes communication truly powerful isn't a show of expertise, but a moment of shared humanity. Whether on a TED stage, in a meeting, or across a dinner table, the magic happens when we dare to speak, not just to be heard, but to be understood and to understand in return. So yes, Talk Like TED is about public speaking, but it's really about something larger: the art of making ideas matter, and the everyday bravery it takes to share what we believe in a way that invites others to care too. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real secret, not in what we say, but in why we say it, and in our willingness to say it with open hearts.